Before we start the video, I need to say that dependable information on the weed industry in Humboldt isn't easy to come by, for obvious reasons, and I'm sure I've gotten some details wrong. Let me know if I did in a comment, and I'll be more than happy to add a note. On that front, do check the description for those corrections. There are a few topics that get more attention from the entertainment industry than the drug trade. From the desert meth cooks of Breaking Bad to the Baltimore hustle of The Wire to the 80s bloodbath in Miami portrayed in Scarface, you get the idea. In the drug trade, you find bad people doing bad things. It's entertaining. And sometimes it's even educational as far as lesser-known history, as is the case in the series Snowfall, or Roberto Bolaño's masterpiece novel 2006-66. On the other end of the spectrum, it's been about 60 years since the Summer of Love in San Francisco, and people are still fascinated with hippies and psychedelic culture. You know the cliches: acid trips, young people in flowing clothes, crazy art, innovations in music. It's a very different vibe from the drug trade as portrayed in Narcos. But what if I told you there was a place where those two cultures slam together? I'm Matchstick. I write fiction, and I have a few novels in the Kindle store at the moment. I also have a newsletter that gets sent out whenever a video drops, which I recommend if you want updates, because we all know YouTube sucks at subscriptions. More information on all that is in the description. Anyway, weed enthusiasts are probably familiar with the reputation of Humboldt County up in the far northern reaches of California. Before marijuana became more or less legalized, and before growing the plants became viable all over the globe with indoor growing techniques, the area's natural setting was home to one of the largest illegal weed growing industries in the world. After the legal environment shifted, however, that industry began to suffer and is now a shadow of its former self. However, even if Humboldt's weed growing heyday is coming to a close, that heyday was something pretty wild. Think about it this way. A normal farm grows a crop and may bring in temporary workers to pick and prepare the final product. The difference in Humboldt was that the crop was both ridiculously lucrative and illegal, and the temporary workers were hippie kids. In addition, the entire regional economy ran on marijuana cultivation. It was sort of a narco state within California, a colorful criminal world within the redwoods on the Pacific coast. Humboldt's weed industry came into being after hippies arrived in substantial numbers during a back to the land movement. Although it was definitely the spark of the huge cultural shifts of the 60s, in some ways the Summer of Love in SF didn't really make sense. Kids were tripping and becoming in tune with nature in the middle of a highly urban environment. As the drugs got harder and youth homelessness increased in San Francisco in the years that followed, a number of communes popped up in the far northern reaches of California, around a 5-hour drive away. The evolution of this commune culture into weed farms was pretty straightforward. The hippies needed to grow food to make the communes work, and hippies like weed. If you're growing anything at all, why not grow weed too? And if you need money to keep the commune going, why not grow some extra weed and sell it, etc. By the 1980s, the previous main source for weed in the USA, Mexico, was under attack as part of the USA's ill-thought-out war on drugs. This crackdown opened up an opportunity for Humboldt farmers, and by the time weed was becoming semi-legalized in the 1990s, the vast majority of weed in the US was grown in what was known as the Emerald Triangle: Trinity, Mendocino, and Humboldt counties. Some estimates put the percentage of triangle weed out of all marijuana circulating in the USA in that era at a staggering 90%. On the note of production methods, the role of Humboldt scientists and botanists in the history of farming, period, is consistently overlooked. For example, the Wikipedia page for hydroponics mentions marijuana once, and merely says that cannabis is a crop grown using the practice, when, in reality, a huge amount of knowledge on the technique was gained in the illegal weed growing industry in NorCal. This happened because outdoor grows were able to be spotted by air. A greenhouse under a redwood canopy is a much more concealed operation. As aerial surveillance would imply, after the Emerald Triangle had seized control of the U.S. marijuana industry, the war on drugs came knocking. Things got a little more dicey as a result, but what really changed things in Humboldt was legalization. The Emerald Triangle began to see competitions from mega farms in Colorado, and the headaches caused by taxation and fees just kept getting worse. As an industry that had relied on cash and silence became an investment opportunity, the weed scene in Humboldt declined ridiculously. However, while it was in its glory days, the Emerald Triangle weed industry had a big influence on world culture. This is because trimming, or preparing harvested weed for the market, is a very lucrative position. we're talking several $100s a day. And because of the connections many Humboldt growers had with hippie culture, many of the people taking that job were in the next generation of that culture. I've personally been told that much of modern festival culture was founded this way, and that includes the one that started it all, Burning Man. The Emerald Triangle was the connection between the 60s counterculture and today's. It has to be noted that the Emerald Triangle and its cash cow attracted groups other than hippies. Substantial numbers of indigenous American, Eastern European, and Hmong growers were active in the region as well. There has also long been a Mexican drug cartel presence in the area. Also, many growing operations were in national parks, so if you were hiking in one and saw a fence, you definitely wanted to turn around, and it's still a good idea. Now let me ask you this. Does all this have potential as far as entertainment? Redwoods, drug kingpins, hippies, growing scientists, occasional violence? I mean, the stories kind of write themselves. So why haven't we seen this story told already, given the public's insatiable thirst for drug trade media? I honestly have no idea. I've thought about it, and I don't really care to write such a story myself, so consider this a freebie for other creators. Go get on it before someone else does. And no, it's not cannabis. Just because it's been accepted into the garden doesn't mean we should forget what it was considered for over a century. It's weed. Peace out.